Good evening and welcome to tonight's Board of Selectmen meeting. Today is January 26, 2017. Let the record show that all board members are present, as well as Town Manager Michael Units. If we could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would first like to take a moment and just notify the board that the gentleman, John Drain, has passed away, former selectman. So what I'd like to do is have a moment of silence for Mr. Drain, please. Thank you. First order of business is to discuss and vote on the regional dispatch. So again, I don't know, Mr. Units, if you want to just give us a brief update, I guess, first.
I know that some of you went to the meeting in Mansfield where we had the presentation, and some of you watched it that weren't able to attend that night. Since that presentation, well, that night Mansfield voted unanimously in support of the regionalization. Easton voted unanimously, and Foxborough also voted unanimously in support of the regionalization. I provided you with letters from the two chiefs in support of the regionalization, as well as Ray Cord, who was on the planning committee. The planning committee recommends that the selectmen vote in support of regionalizing dispatch with Easton, Foxborough, Mansfield, and Norton. The committee looked at it. I know the chiefs have been working on it for 2 years, and the planning committee has been working on it for a number of months now, and the committee believes that it would be the best for the town, the residents, for the fire department and the police department personnel. It'll be the best way to improve on the technology that we have, and it'll be a professional center with a minimum of 5 people working at a time, 5 dispatchers, 6 most times, and 7 during peak times. There'll be a supervisor on each shift, as well as a director. I think it will be a good operation, and it'll be, there's obviously a savings to the town financially, but we're not looking at it. We like to save money, obviously, but we're looking at more professional, better operation, just to upgrade the technology that we would need in the future would cost us $1 million. Well, now technology is going to be shared with all the towns. The town of Norton, the budgetary savings are in the $400,000 range. We save substantially more than the other towns because we already have a station officer position in town, where the other towns don't, and they will need to have someone put in that position. So that's why when you look at the savings, you see $437,000 here, and the other towns range from a savings of $53,000 to $166,000. It basically because of that station officer. And I know that Chief Schleicher has been working on the building committee. The dispatch center would be located in the current police station in Mansfield. Mansfield's building a new police station, and we would know if you want to talk about, Paul, a little bit about what's happening with the building committee.
Well, Mr. Units, if I may, the firefighters union would like to go ahead and read a letter into the record just to be done with it, and then I can get up and
Surely.
do a presentation for you if you'd like.
Good evening, everybody. How are you? Andy Gomes, President, Local. Just want to read this letter that we drafted today. Dear Selectmen, regarding the pending vote on regionalization, the Norton Fire Local 2678 made a motion last night to express its opposition. We support our dispatchers that we have worked with throughout the years and that could possibly be losing their jobs due to the change. We do, however, recognize that the world of fire EMS is trending of this way of dispatch, and it has yet to be seen whether or not it's truly successful in other communities in Massachusetts. We have questions of staffing, how non-emergent phone calls will be handled, as well as day-to-day operations. Most importantly, we are concerned about changing our working conditions in the future. If passed, we expect that all changes will be negotiated with us. We have already been in contact with other unions involved with the other towns and hope to work together about any further questions and concerns.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gomes.
No problem.
Much
Yeah.
appreciated.
Chairman,
Mr. Kimball.
yeah, before we get too far into this, and I totally, no, it's okay.
You good?
I totally respect the
Thank
fact
you.
that, the unions take various positions and, going to support each other, and I totally understand that. I mean, I totally get that concept. So, I know we've seen other letters from other towns where other unions have stepped forward and said, look, we, obviously we support the brotherhood, and totally get it. From my point of view, probably the one thing, and cost savings is a side factor. Technology we're talking about, the kind of coverage we're talking about, which in my opinion is better than what we can offer today. If we were talking about a regional police and fire department, I'd be fighting tooth and nail over that. That's something that I'm not ready for. But the funny thing is, and I was having this thought on the way over tonight, I can remember this conversation a few years ago, and the opposition at that time was like staggering. I mean, it was like nobody even wanted to talk about it. But I think the big difference today is the technology that's out there, and being able to get a phone call and know exactly who you're talking to. It's right in front of you. They know exactly where the person is and who they're talking to. Is a major reason why I'm going to support it. The second thing is the 911 factor. Having been on the highway myself and called 911 time, and I got a state police dispatcher on the phone from God knows where. It took a while for me to get to the person I needed to get to. And it's my understanding under this regional program that when you make a 911 from your cell phone, it's going to be instantaneous. It's going to go to this facility. It's not going to have to go through other agencies to get there. And that, to me, is one of the major factors, especially today with cell phones. That's why I think it's important. And the third thing, my final thought on it is, I appreciate the fact that regionalization is becoming more prominent, and it is going to be a cost savings to most communities. It's going to be a better service to most communities. We've already started on it. We're leading the way on the regional tri-town sewer pack. I mean, that's something that we brought in to the area, and really others are maybe now starting to look at. And I know that other towns have had the opportunity to create some regionalization. I went to the Mass Municipal Association meeting last weekend, and I had a lady sitting there from North Brookfield, I think it was. Was it North Brookfield?
Yeah,
Yeah, Brookfield.
Brookfield.
Yeah, she was telling us they're part of a 10-town regional dispatch because they're all small towns. And, I made the argument that, well, it's a large area to cover, and people have to stand back and think about it and say, a major city, Taunton, Brockton, Springfield, most of these facilities only have one dispatch center with millions of people that they have to deal with. So in our case, we're looking at somewhere around a population of 70,000, 80,000 people in the 4 towns. And to me, that's a small part to have to support. And so regionalization is coming. The message I got from the last meeting was that there's a very good possibility that we'll be forced to do this at some point. That doesn't mean the state can come and say, you're going to do it. What they're going to do is they're going to say, you know what, you want grants, you want funding, you want additional whatever, 9/11 revenues, you need to go to regionalization. I appreciate the fact that the 4 towns that we're talking about are comparable in size and population. And for the most part, we're pretty much the same as far as, our white-collar versus blue-collar populations and stuff like that. I think we're very, very compatible. What I'd be concerned about is Big Brother the state coming along eventually saying, you know what, Norton, you didn't make that connection, so we're going to pair you up with someone. Now, you have to look around us and say, who do we have? We've got the big city of Attleboro to one side of us. We've got the big city of Taunton behind us, right? I appreciate the fact that they're big cities, and I appreciate the fact that they probably would do okay, but I don't want to be the small guy working with the big guy. And I really like the idea of having comparable communities working together to make this happen. And I also like the idea that we have the choice to make that decision. Now, we went to the meeting, and I heard all the factors, and I got to tell you something. 2 weeks ago, I stood here and thought, I don't know if I like this or not. And I walked away feeling that I could support it. And I think it's probably the best thing for us. So that's my 10 cents worth. But the one major factor is I want to choose who I want to work with. And I think that's what it boils down to. I want to have that choice myself. I don't want someone else making that choice.
So along those lines, I would definitely agree with that, and I would be very skeptical for a Taunton or an Attleboro choice as well, just because of big cities and the comparable sizes of our towns.
Different type of government.
Different type of government, absolutely. In in that meeting, you see that all of the chiefs in the towns are working together to try to do the best thing. But again, Mr. Gomes did raise some questions, which are, I think, questions that everybody here has as well. Making sure that our public is safe and timeliness of a call. Our personnel, our dispatchers, who I think are, seem to be the best around to me. I don't think they'll have an issue keeping their jobs, but again, that's out there. That meeting was very informative to me. There are some questions. Again, there's a lot of people here that certainly can answer some questions if they still have them. The cost savings is one thing, but you can't always make a decision based on the cost savings. But I think you're exactly right. The state is basically holding are going to be holding towns to the line as far as regionalization, not just in dispatching, but in other things as well. And they're going to be holding out money or offering money to those towns that do that. And, it's one of those things. So we have to make sure that we decide what the best opportunity for us is. And if this is, if the board decides that this is the right thing to do, then certainly that's the way we should go then. Mr. Units.
Just obviously, one of the concerns is that we have 9 dispatchers in town, and what happens to them. And as I said last week, none of the towns want to be paying unemployment insurance. So this is 2 to 3 years away. You may have some retirements, and then we're going to do our best to keep our dispatchers fully trained so that when the center is ready to open and the interview process begins, that our dispatchers will have a fair shake to try and obtain one of the positions in the dispatch center that will probably be paying them more than they're making in our dispatch center. Also, as I said, there'll be supervisors on each shift, so it will give them a chance of a opportunity for advancement. Obviously, the first thing we look at is safety for the town and our police and fire departments that are out there on the street. And then the concern, obviously, for the employees that are dispatchers that do a good job. And I would imagine that some of those dispatchers would be hired at the new center.
Just along those lines, and I know, Chief, if you could just answer a question for me, I guess, and it's sort of an open-ended question, I guess, and I meant to ask this at the meeting the other night, but so this being 2 years out, we're looking to go from 2 plus, so 40 to around 25 employees. So is it expected, or is there any expectation that in 2 years that number could possibly be higher than 25, or do we not even know? I mean, that's somewhat of an open.
A couple of things. Number one, I do have somebody here who worked on the staffing models as far as that goes, and I thought that the number was pretty firm as far as what we're looking at, that we feel that it's based on the Newton population, and it mirrors Norton very much as far as call volume and population and whatnot. So I think that is really the number we're looking to really start at. And again, regarding your saving money, as far as that. I right out of the gate 2 years ago went into this looking at it, that I was looking to try to find the best product, the safest product for the taxpayers of Norton, not so much worried about the saving side of it. And the fact that it's going to save money is just an absolute, the icing on the cake. Because again, I think you're going to end up with a far superior product. It's going to maintain the technology better, far better than we are the least technology town out of the four as it is right now, and I don't see that going leap years ahead in the next year or two on our own. This puts at least the rec center right up there with the technology and stuff. So I've been really trying to look at the devil's advocate side of things and come up with some negatives. And everything I look at, it seems like it's a positive step for the town of Norton. I think it's a positive step for the dispatchers. We met with them over a year ago, Mike, or close to a year ago, to let them know that, we're looking to potentially do this and recommend that they just stay up with their skills and possibly take some current classes that are going on to polish their resume. They had, at that time, 3+ years to do it and stuff, and they still 2+ years now to do it. That if they're serious and they really want to, have a job there, then you really need to make sure that they are up on their skills and ready to go and stuff. So I think it's going to be a great product myself. Mr. Units had asked me initially to come up here and speak a little bit about the building itself. The police station in Mansfield that they're leaving it for a reason, because it needs work. And 911 will not fund the construction of a new facility. It's just an absolute line in the sand they draw, and I don't know why, because I think you'd be better off building a nice new building that was functional for that, but they will spend all the money to retrofit an existing building. So they will go in and replace it from the roof on down and do whatever needs to be done to make this. They've had some experts that have looked at it and worked with us that have come up with some preliminary designs. Again, still a work in progress, but it's a beautiful setup. There's been talk about only 4 dispatch stations. There's 4 double stations. It's actually equipped to staff 8 dispatchers at any given time. So again, that was a misnomer that was out there, that how you only got to have the 4 spots. It doesn't matter if you have 5 or 6 on. So want to make sure we set that straight. The building's going to have a long-term lease to the rec at no charge, and the 911 will be taking care of the maintenance of the part of the facility we use and stuff. Like I said, the money part's a bonus, but go ahead.
The renovation 911 will, right?
Correct. The renovations are paid for by 911, all of it. One of the big things that we have right now for an immediate need out of the 4 towns, we all have the same service company servicing our radios. We have the oldest infrastructure, but it's actually better maintained for some reason. So we're lucky that way, because again, our radios are pushing 17 years old, our repeaters and stuff, and it's a 7 to 10 year shelf life, and there's no parts. And the only reason we're still surviving is that other places that have modernized theirs, our service company has taken the older units, put them in their back shed and holding them till it can take parts of it to keep our system running. So we're in dire need of a serious infrastructure boost. This is one way where 911 will take care of that as well. So it not only saves the annual money, but it's going to save on that initial infrastructure for our radios that are archaic and stuff. It'll link us all. We all work mutual aid now. It's the closest thing I think you'll get in my lifetime to a regional police or fire service, is the fact that we do respond mutual aid and assist each other. And I think that's what you're going to see as far as that goes, as far as that concerned, Mr. Kimball. But we do work well together. The 4 towns are almost identical. Call volumes are the same and everything. I do have some guests here that I want to have talk to you a little bit, but one of the things that I wanted to mention was the non-emergent calls. That seems to be a sticking issue or whatever, and we had that as far as some of the email chain. And you're going to have an automated calling system. The very first thing you're going to hear is, if this is an emergency, hang up and dial 911. They're all going to say that, no matter what system you call. And then you're going to go into the phone tree. We all hate it. It's modern technology, though, and you're going to pick the number you want for whatever department you want, whatever person you want, or whatever. If, when that's all said and done, you really feel that you need to speak to somebody, and you zero out the call, which if people do that a lot, they know if you just keep hitting a zero, eventually you'll get a person, you'll get the rec center. And that's what the zero out calls will end up going over to the rec center. So if you have that, so that's something that was built into the system. Most things aren't that dire that it can't wait till a business day to be dealt with. But if something's that, then hang up, dial 911 if it's that bad, or zero out, and you'll get the rec center. So we did have that part of the plan and stuff. So I don't know if you got preliminary questions for me, or I get the I've got a guest here from the South Shore Rec Center. I don't know if you want to have a
more of a comment, a question
Sure.
to you. The only thing, if the board does a vote on this, and it would be the 4th town to do this, if we do agree to it. The one thing, and I think we had a conversation about the other night, in the next 2 to 3 years as we're making this transition, if this equipment down the hill suddenly fries and we have to buy something new, I would encourage all the towns to buy the right equipment. Make sure we're replacing the equipment with the stuff that can easily be moved from point A to point B. What I don't want to start doing is spending money on equipment that's going to be obsolete, in 2 or 3 years. I'd rather spend if the town, like the town of Norton, has to buy something until the transition, I want to make sure we get the right equipment. Second part of that is, if through attrition, if we do lose somebody, that person should be trained so that that person can go to any town. Because, again, as we continue to narrow down on who's going to be doing the dispatching, it would be nice if they're all trained the same way. If any training sessions that we have, all 4 towns should go to the same training. That's the kind of stuff we can do in advance of this to make sure it's a smoother transition when the time comes.
So regarding the radios, Mr. Kimball, we've already had a company come in and actually look at our infrastructure. Looked at it all, making sure that we could link up the towns through microlinks and all this stuff here. And we are full steam ahead on that. And that's some of the stuff that the 911 will start giving us grants now to move forward on this process. So if that would happen, then that would get ramped up to be one of our more pressing priorities. And as a matter of fact, the grant that's pending that needs to win by, Monday? Is for a $200,000 engineering grant separate from 911. It's another outside concern that's going to fund a $200,000 engineering grant to help fine-tune that radio plan, Bob. So we really are cognizant of that for starters, because we're all on Band-Aids and gum, keeping our stuff together right now. And we're fortunate. It's almost like a perfect timing for this. It's perfect timing with the building in Mansfield that they got their new public safety complex being built, so that this is going to be vacated, and it's between the 4 towns, so it's an ideal location. It worked out when they shot their antenna to antenna stuff and all that kind of stuff. So everything worked on that end there.
The one thing I walked away from that meeting the other night was I felt very confident, based on the fact that all the chiefs in the 4 towns were very much behind this process, that you guys are doing a very thorough job. You're looking into it. This isn't a shot in the dark. You guys have spent 2 years on this already. It's going to take another 2 or 3 years to iron out even more of the details as we go along. But, I just want people at home to know that this is not something that was just conceived last week. This has been a long process. You guys have done your homework, and you convinced me. Because I got to tell you, like I said, a couple of 3 weeks ago, I'm thinking, I don't know if this is good for us or not.
Neil, when was the Serpent study, the original flawed study? How many years ago?
The flawed study was done 8.5 years ago.
Oh,
So 8.5 years ago, we were almost forced into a regional PSAP with, I believe, Fall River, New Bedford, and Norton. How's that work? It was going to be us with 11. It was going to be 11 people together, 2 cities and 9 small towns. And it's like, you talk about having the big guy in town. That's one of the problems with some of these other rec centers that are struggling, is because they don't have the match that we have. So I think that we're trying to, look at the failures and make sure that we don't do it. Regarding 2+ years of researching and working on this, if I thought there was anything that would in any way, form, or shape lessen public safety in Norton, I'd run from it. I wouldn't walk from it, I'd run from it. And it's just the opposite. No matter how much I look at it, like I says, I can't find a reason not to embrace it. And again, I do have some other guests here that are experts in their individual parts of the process. I was the one that's on the building committee, and they did an RFP and had a very professional firm, Castle Booze, come up with a very nice preliminary design of what's going on. I'm excited about the layout. I think it mirrors a lot of what I saw at the South Shore Rec that we had visited, and would welcome a field trip there if anybody wants to at some point. We talked about the town managers even going over there just to check it out and stuff, and I'm sure Chief Ridden would welcome that.
He hasn't offered to pay for lunch yet, so.
Chief Ridden, you got that in your budget?
I don't think that was the chief he was talking
Oh, really? I'm sorry.
We did see a preliminary plan there.
You did, as I says, and it's got potential to expand, but again, the governance agreement has got all the cards are in our pocket, which is the way we wanted it, so that if it's going to be an expansion, it's going to be with your blessings. And again, we'll be certainly looking at comparable communities and all that stuff there if it does happen and stuff. But I know, even speaking with Chief Clark, I believe one of our conversation was, we're very content with the 4 of us. We think it's a great mix and all that. So, again, I would welcome a few minutes of Chief Reardon talking a little bit about the social rec, and he might alleviate any of the potential concerns you might have in the background.
So,
Chief?
just before that, I don't know,
Yep.
anybody else on the board have any questions for the chief?
I'll sit in the timeouts chair. I didn't know you had one up here like that. That's the first time I noticed
We have a
that.
kitty chair.
You know? So, Chief Reardon? So Chief Reardon is the fire chief from Norwell, and I really appreciate that he was willing to take time to come out here tonight, but they're a key player in the South Shore Rec. And, Chief?
Welcome, chief.
Folks, good evening. When I told my board I was coming here tonight, they said, at least be nice to them, because I'm never nice to my own. May work both ways, but the South Shore Rec idea started over a luncheon between a town administrator and a town manager. And one of the things was, how can we save money? How can we consolidate? They brought some chiefs in, and I have to be honest. I'm not a guy that is known to go after the new buzzword or change. I live in the same house that 4 generations of my family have lived in. So you can kind of tell where I'm at when it comes to change. But I listened, and the police chiefs and the fire chiefs sat there, and we talked about issues of improved services and improved safety. The town administrators wanted to hear cost savings, and we kept saying, well, that's nice for you. For us, it's about safety in the street and improved services. I think we got all three. I'm fairly comfortable with the South Shore Rec that we have all three. Have we had some bumps and bruises? Yes. And the good news is your team came and visited our folks. Our folks were able to share with them some of the mistakes that we made as we developed the SHREC, and there were several. We went through some difficult times during our startup, and you'll hear people say that they were sent to the wrong address, different things happen. They did. And I'm not prone to be a liar, but I will tell you that the good news is, because we made those mistakes, you won't. Because again, I've been talking with the folks on the team. What we now have is a reliable system that I, as the fire chief, and my primary concern is the safety of my personnel and the safety of my community. I live in the same community that I protect. My 2-year-old grandson lives in the same community, lives in the same house, in the same community that I protect. So I rely on the 911 system to protect one of the most precious things in my life. And I can fairly guarantee you that when we dial 911, we're going to get the quality service that everybody has always gotten. Let me address the 10-digit or 7-digit phone issue. I don't know about Norton, but I know in Norwell, everybody knew how to get hold of the fire chief. If you had a problem, call the fire chief, he'd handle it. Some people had my own home phone number, and they'd call and, Andy, I don't know if this is a big deal, but there's smoke coming out of the side of my house. Well, why don't you get off the phone? We'll be right down. And, Norwell's a small New England community, and it took us a while to convince those folks to get away from dialing the 10-digit number and go to 911. At the risk of being called old once more by my colleagues, I can remember when it only took 4 digits to get the right number or the right house in town. But now that we've done the training, the police chief, myself, and our staffs went out to the community and said, hey, if you need to talk to us about permits Monday through Friday, call this number. You may get a phone tree, but again, he'll direct you to the right person. If it's on the weekends, you call, leave a message. If it's an emergency, if you think that you need a police officer, a firefighter, or an ambulance, dial 911. And the senior population, I'm sure it's the same here, is very hesitant to do that until we gave them the authorization. No, we need you to do this, and it's because of the technology. The gentleman, I apologize, I don't know names, but that cell phone 911 issue works well. Tonight's Thursday, so a week ago Monday, a dear friend of mine went to his son's home and found his son had passed away. My friend is in his 80s. He dials 911. He's able to pass through the state system and get right to our staff, who was able to walk him through what he needed to do until my staff and the law enforcement folks arrived. In conversation, because I arrived at the scene myself, and in conversation, his comment was, Andy, I didn't know if I called the right 911. I said, Jimmy, you did the right thing. But the point is that he got the service. Good news is in April or May, we're going to take over the cell phone 911 calls. And there's a whole host of, well above my ability to understand technology, but there's a whole host of steps that go into this. And the most importantly is that where the towers are located. But the good news is for us on the South Shore, the towns of Hingham, Cohasset, Norwell, and Hull, if you pick up the phone and dial 911, whatever phone you pick up, you're going to reach our dispatchers. Now, the other question,
Chief,
sorry?
just with regards to that, I have just a quick story. My wife was driving in Attleboro a few weeks ago. There was a guy that was hit by a car, and nobody had stopped or anything. So she stopped, and so she dialed 911. She ended up going to the state police. So in her mind, it wasn't fast enough to go to the state police. She wanted to go to the Attleboro police, and she hung up the phone. She hung up the phone, and then dialed the Attleboro police.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the state police ended up calling her back, obviously.
Right.
But that delay, should no longer be happening, and it's just something that people, when they dial in 911, I think most people are thinking that they're getting right to that town, or right to that whatever town, city, whatever that is.
And Mr. Chairman, they should be. I mean, there's absolutely no reason.
Absolutely.
Absolutely no reason. But again, if I'm going to look to some of the members of the committee, does anybody remember when the phone used to be in the kitchen or on the wall in the back hall, and if you needed to have a private conversation, you needed to step into the bathroom and make sure the cord was long enough? I grew up.
See, we remember that.
Okay, good. Yeah, no, some.
Yeah, with a 4-digit.
But you look at it and say, and think of how quickly technology has advanced for those of us who lived in the 20th century, and now we're in the 21st century, and God only knows where technology, look at my favorite 2-year-old and say, where's technology going to be in just a few years? But I'll tell you, one of the benefits of us going to what we call the Shrek is the town of Norwell built a new police station 3 years ago. If we had not been part of the regional center, we would have incurred, the taxpayers in the town of Norwell would have incurred over $1 million in expense of additional radio and other technology issues to go into the police station so that the police department could continue to work. Okay? We didn't have those expenses. We have just completed, I just got an email today, that we have just completed a fiber link between all 8 departments, police and fire in the 4 communities, back to what we call the Shrek, which is on the second floor of the Hingham Town Hall. We didn't pay for that fiber link. It's a 96-pair fiber link that it's redundant, and so that all of our radio systems, our repeaters, and all that other stuff is connected. If something happens, we're not going to notice it immediately. We're not going to have a breakdown of equipment. Again, not paid for by the taxpayers of any one of the 4 communities. And
By who, Chief?
it was paid by the state through the 911 grants. Radio equipment that we needed to be updated, mobile data terminals. I never believed, back when I first started as a firefighter, that I would ever have a computer in the front of my engine. Now, as some people know, I have a computer in the front seat of my car. Not quite sure how it's supposed to operate, but they're working on training me. But that, again, was all those things that, because they enhance our ability to respond, that 911 was willing to help us with. So, good news. Your problems are going, I'm hoping, are going to be smaller, because we had some problems that we're happy to share with anybody working on the system. Good news is you're going to have state-of-the-art technology available to you in your dispatch center, wherever your dispatch center is, so that when someone's wife calls, someone's friends call, whatever the case may be, that person is going to come up, that name and the location of that phone is going to come up on a screen. And in our system, not only does it come up on a screen in the front of the dispatcher, but there's a wall. When it first got put in, I said, what a great place to watch the Super Bowl, but I was quickly corrected. And it's a great place to watch not only where the call came in, but where apparatus is moving and a whole host of other things from a central location. Again, I apologize if I've taken too long, but I will tell you that from an end user standpoint, one of the things that I worry about when I go to sleep at night is, will my firefighters, will the police officers, even though they don't work for me, but I've worked with them for a long time, will they be safe? And I will tell you, the answer to that question every night is yes. At least from a dispatch perspective, they will be safe. And that you can't put a price on that. Can I answer any questions?
How long have you been in the regional program?
I would say we're working on year number 7.
7.
I think we've been operational 5.
Okay.
And we've had some starts and stops. But what we do.
Now, when you say starts and stops.
Well, we were headed full speed ahead with one consultant, and then we had to stop. And we jumped on. We did our homework and got a better, if you will, consultant, and learned some lessons. Again, I swear we could write a book on how not to do this. And when we go around, we try to tell people, the good news is we did it. We made those mistakes. The good news is you folks don't have to. Okay. And I just think it's so valuable. And somebody up here made the statement about working with like-sized communities. The town of Hingham is, if you will, the big boy in the shop. The town of Hull and Norwell are about the same size, and then we have the village of Cohasset. Property values, that's another issue, but the point being that we work so well together that a lot of our policies have changed, a lot of our safety issues have changed, so that if my folks go to Hingham or Hingham comes to us, whatever, it's the same. And again, there's a level of comfort, not only for me as a chief, but for the firefighters and the people in the street, that they don't have to worry about stuff. Mm. We've saved over $1 million in an SCBA through a collective group through the SHREC. SCBA was we worked together. $1 million was saved for our communities. Radios, I could go on about all the things that once we started working together, it was like, man, this is wicked easy. And sometimes entertaining at meetings, but generally wicked easy.
Just along what Mr. Kimball was getting to, I guess I think the training of the dispatchers, based on regionalization, I guess, using that same process for, in our case, it would be 4 towns, I guess. But is that something that you've adopted as well, or?
Well, all of our dispatchers have to follow, have a very, again, being a dispatcher back in the 70s compared to what they have to learn today. I probably wouldn't be standing here. I would have probably been doing something else. But they have certain standards they have to meet. They're all trained, and they have to be trained over 2 months before they're allowed on the floor. Now the next step we've seen is co-training amongst departments when we can. And again, trying to find the time where we're not going to be, because as soon as we start to pull away, we can't go east. Every time we try to go east, we get wet. Mm-hmm. So we have to remember that exists, and we have some challenges in terms of maneuverability. But for the most part, we're trying to do as many things together as we can. If I could, there's an issue of emergency medical dispatch, and something that's near and dear to my heart for a couple of different reasons. But we are able at the SHREC, we're able to do 100% of the time, we're able to handle our medical calls under the EMD protocols. 10% of all our EMD calls are evaluated every month. I'm pleased to report that our scores are very high in our evaluation, to the point where our medical control doc, who services my community for our ALS license, but also services the SHREC, is delighted. In fact, he's always happy to point out that we don't just say, do you need an ambulance? We actually go through and we'll walk people through that first response. So, your dispatch is really the key to that first response. And in my opinion, with the technology and the capabilities of the regional centers, you are now making the dispatcher a true first responder. So even though they can't be beside the patient, there is help there and other assistance coming along in that 4 to 5 minute period of time.
Okay. Any questions? Any other questions? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, just to introduce the other chiefs and people that are here. We've had a meeting about a year maybe with the policies, where we had the deputy chiefs in the 4 towns and Lieutenant Robbins working out policies, because if the 4 chiefs from the police and the 4 chiefs from the fire couldn't come up with basically a single model policy that we could work on, then that almost defuncted the whole project. So again, Lieutenant Robbins is here from Norton Fire Department. He was very instrumental in that. Deputy Keller here from Foxborough. Chief Neil Boldigini sleeping in the corner over there. Hi, Chief. and Deputy Pulio from Mansfield. And I appreciate their support coming out here tonight, in case there was any real technical questions, because they all had their own little niche in the process and stuff. So I appreciate your consideration on it, and like I says, I don't see a single downside to it myself as far as moving ahead that we can't work through.
Thank you, Chief, and I appreciate everybody here for coming this evening as well. Mr. Bramwell.
I just want to say that I unfortunately was not able to attend the meeting in Mansfield last Tuesday. I have viewed the tape several times and I felt very comfortable with the technology and the entire idea. I had some concerns about personnel, only because, unfortunately, I've become a frequent caller over the past couple of years, and I've become attached to some of our dispatchers, but fortunately they were so good that I didn't end up being the second patient to be carted away, and they've always serviced me very well. And I think because of their abilities, they should have. I've talked with Mr. Units, and I feel that they are very capable of getting positions in the new center. So I feel very comfortable going forward with this. I think it's going to enhance the response, and just the way technology just keeps improving. I just can't imagine not doing this because of the technology. And just to make Chief Reardon feel better, I remember that when I first picked up the telephone, we had to wait for 2 rings, because we had a thing they called the party line. I just wanted to say that my concerns, all my questions about the technology and how this would work were answered by the Mansfield forum, I guess, or meeting. I had concerns about the personnel, and I spoke with Mr. Units, and he pretty much assured me, as much as anyone can, that I at least feel comfortable that our people will have a very good shot at getting positions in this new center.
Okay, and, it just, again, it's a couple years away before it gets finalized. So it's important, I think, over that period of time, that we as a board, again, if we were to support this tonight, that we as a board continue to have conversations with the chiefs, and any types of questions that, we have them come in and speak publicly about our questions and concerns maybe that we have, or even non-concerns, positive things as well. Because so I think it's important that going forward from this point on, that continues to happen throughout. Yes, Ms. Steele.
I just want to say, first of all, thank you to everybody who came out tonight. It's important for me to see that it's important enough for you guys to take your time to come here and be available if we did have any questions. for all the reasons that everybody else has said, I'm also in favor of this. And I just want to point out one other thing that hasn't been mentioned tonight. Not only did both of the chiefs work hard and are not only they're on board with this, but also our emergency management system, Ray Court sent a letter of support as well. And from my point of view as a resident in the town of Norton, knowing that the 3 departments that are charged with the safety of the people who live in this town are all on board with this, and not just kind of 2 pages worth of being on board, it's all I need to hear. I think this is good for the town.
Thank you. All right. Given that, I will then make a motion, or entertain a motion, entertain a motion that shall the town of Norton accept the provisions of sections 18O to 18V, inclusive of Chapter 6A of the general laws providing for the establishment of a Regional 9/11 Emergency Communications District, together with the towns of Easton, Mansfield, and Foxborough, and the construction and/or siting, administration, and operation and maintenance of a Regional 9/11 Emergency Communication Center by the district under the provisions of proposed district agreement filed with the Board of Selectmen.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Given none, Mr. Bramwell.
Yes.
Ms. Steele.
Yes.
Mr. Salvo.
Yes.
Mr. Kimball.
Yes,
And I too vote yes, that is unanimous.
save the best to last.
Mr. Units. Mr. Units?
I just wanted, as Mary was talking, I just wanted to thank Ray Cord for the time he put in. His knowledge of the equipment was very helpful. And also Mike Flaherty from the Finance Committee, who was on the Planning Committee, and his knowledge of the finances and his input as a citizen of the town was very helpful also. I'd like to thank them.
In addition, Mr. Chairman, I think we need to thank the town managers of the towns for being involved too, because they were very much a part of it also, so.
Yeah.
I know Mike won't say that, but I'll say it for him.
So again, thank you all for coming tonight too. It does mean something. Thank you, Chief. Okay, next, Daggett Crandall Newcomb. A couple weeks ago, we discussed some property. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
Mike, that's why I have it on again, because I didn't remember what you wanted me to do on that.
So there was some
You
additional
could have called
property.
and asked.
So there was a rights of first refusal on one property, but there was some additional properties
Across the street.
that were across the street that we had some questions on, that you were gonna
Want
check
me
with
to see if
conservation.
he can
and-
let us know what
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
doing with those in the future?
Yeah,
Yes.
because they're selling it off piece by piece. I know Conservation's looked at some of it where they'd like to hopefully get some kind of, a green belt along the river there. So this is a great time to talk about what they're looking to do there. Because if they're going to continue to sell it off, maybe we could cut off a section of that now, and they could give that to the green belt, and then we could, from that point on, obviously, if we don't have a need for it, they can do whatever they want to do with it.
Okay.
If I may also,
Mr. Brown.
if the conservation has a heads up that they're interested in getting rid of the other land eventually, they might be able to start working on grants
Yeah.
to fund acquisition.
Right. Good idea.
Okay. Town manager report?
Just an update on the ALI update is that nothing has happened.
This is for Brad's.
I know the last time we met, they were working on a proposal where there was a company from Taunton that was going to be involved, and now that company is not going to be involved. So they're back at the drawing board and waiting for a new proposal and DEP review again before anything's able to move forward.
Now, when you say they, who's they?
Principal.
They're looking to do the same thing with the recrete.
Got it, okay.
And there was a proposal where a company from Taunton was going to be the one that would bring it, mix the material at their site and bring it, and I guess that's fallen through. And DEP hadn't finished their review yet either, so everything is still on hold. On the bike trail, we had a meeting. Things are moving along good. We have, I have in my office the base plan. There's not much on that to look at, but it is a base plan. They've done their wetlands delineations, and we met at Serpent last week with District 5, and we're going to have another meeting at District 5 the first week in February. The 25% submittal will be done in the spring, and they are filing now with Mansfield and Norton Conservation Commissions to have the wetlands line that they delineated approved, so they can know that things will be moving forward. And I was talking with the Mansfield rep when I was at the meeting, and he said that's their biggest recreational use in town, is that trail, walking, biking. And Keith was very excited when I told him that they said they start getting calls a day or two after snowstorms to see when the trail's going to be cleared off. And I did show him the machine.
I'm sure you did.
But, so things are moving along good. The engineering company is the same for both towns, so that's helping out. And it's scheduled for funding in 2020, so seems like a long way off, but by the time they get everything designed and
Goes by fast.
And I gave you a copy of our new SHI update, which has 274 East Main on there. And we're at 7.96%.
Going backwards.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was shocked at. And I was trying to see if anything dropped off, or it's just that the new housing that's
796.
8%.
8%. So,
A little ways to go yet.
yeah. So I was gonna do the math, I haven't done it yet, but I'll let you know, even if we had the 176 for Turtle Crossing,
Still
we
wouldn't
probably
make it.
wouldn't be there yet,
Right, right.
so.
Okay.
And it does list, you can see on there again, the zeros for the ones that, nothing has happened yet.
Nothing's happened, okay.
It's frustrating.
Mr. Kim.
While on the subject, I saw a letter or something somewhere about Arrowhead?
That's the next thing, kayak trail?
No, the person who's going to sell, notifying the town that you're going to talk about?
Yeah,
Okay, because the reason I want to talk about it is because the way that this lottery and the way that the state does this is they're given a certain amount of time to sell the property, and
You're right, it is.
they can't sell it, then it reverts back to market value, right? So I'll let you say your thing.
that's what I meant, it is Arrowhead.
It is Arrowhead.
Correct, yeah. It's a three-bedroom, affordable home at Arrowhead Village, and it is up for sale right now. It's 8 kayak trail.
But what we need to find out, because there are people out there that have to understand how this works. If you're in a certain income
Excuse me.
level, this is an affordable housing unit, and it can only be raised, it was affordable to begin with, so it was probably about, 20, 30% less than the market value units. But the only way this person can sell the property, they can make a little bit more money on it. They can't go to market value. It's staged, every year it's allowed to increase by a certain amount. So if someone out there has never owned a home before, and is in the bracket of, I don't know what the family brackets are anymore. I know at one time if you were, husband and wife with a couple of kids, you were talking probably around $60,000 to $70,000. You can actually buy this house, and it's very, very affordable. So I think what we need to do, Mr. Eunice, is find out what they're wanting, how much they want for it, and get that information. So if anybody is interested in finding out more about it, they have a go-to source, and I don't know who that is. It used to be Mass Housing.
Chapa?
It's Chapa.
It's Chopper.
Yeah, this letter went to Chapper, and they're supposed to get back to us with the price.
Okay, now Chopper is still in
process.
Taunton. Are they still out of Taunton?
They're in Boston.
Boston? So when we get additional information, I think it's very important, even to the point of putting it up on the message board at Town Hall. This is a great opportunity for someone who cannot afford a house. This may be a great opportunity to get into a three-bedroom house at a very affordable price.
Close to a bike trail, too. And
There you go. And you know what, but what I think I can't stress more of the fact that I don't want to see this go back to full retail. This is a great opportunity for somebody to get a great house.
it's a great neighborhood, yeah.
And this great neighborhood, and the guy who built those, was Champion, I think Champion Builders,
Yes.
he did a great job. I mean, I was out there stomping like any other 40B. I was raising hell, but, I remember going to a meeting, and he was there, and I actually praised him at the meeting, saying, you know what? Yeah, I was against all this, but I had to give him a lot of credit that he actually did a very good job on that project. He really did.
Plus, we don't want to lose that house
Right.
back to a.
Right.
Taking off our 10% bracket.
The rezoning of the Houghton property, I'm going to be meeting with Jeff O'Neill Monday, and they are ready to move forward again with the planning board process. I did give you a printout, a PowerPoint presentation, similar to what was done before. And the hope would be to have this on the town warrant in May.
Okay.
I guess just say, what I was pleased to see on that proposal was the property way in the back of the major concern. It looks like the type of facility they're putting out there is the kind we were talking about, a low-profile
Right.
type of building that won't impede or, impose on that neighborhood behind it. So, again, this is a reputable company we've dealt with in the past, and they're continuing to demonstrate their ability to try to work with us, and make it work for everybody.
And, to go back to that earlier SHI number at 8%, if it doesn't end up this, then it could possibly end up with a 40B, and then you're looking at a three-story building instead of a lower type commercial thing. So that's a possibility too. Mr. Selva.
Mr. Chairman, I think when we get going on this public hearings regarding this zoning change here, I think we need to stress to the people loud and clear, because I'm still hearing today that a lot of people are believing that Janet is going to be an access road to this industrial park.
Oh, okay.
So I think that the people that are very concerned about it need to be at ease about it, and that we are going to do all we can to buffer the end of that road as far as noise and everything else for them, so that this, can be set to bed.
Very good point. Absolutely agree completely with that. Yeah.
Could,
And as part of that proposal, and I get it, if you're going to spend the kind of money they're going to spend on this project, I know this board wants to have, improve our tax base, especially our commercial tax base, and make it work for us. We don't want 40Bs. And in the proposal, they're showing actually how they could, as one option, put a 40B project out there. That's not a threat. I mean,
No, right.
if you're spending that kind of money, you've got to look at the future and say, you know what, if I can't put a building out there that I can make something off, I have no other choice but to look at other options. And I don't want people to think that, well, if you don't work with us, we're going to put a 40B out there.
No.
That's not the impression I'm getting from this developer. They want to build these low-profile buildings out there to help, with it's going to cost them a lot of money to develop this property. And I kind of get it.
I don't think they're showing that as a threat that they may do that. I think it's more that if they walk away,
Exactly.
that's the potential.
Yeah,
Possibly happen.
yeah,
Someone
it could.
possibly
It could.
And again, I don't want to come across as it being a threat or coming across that way. Certainly not. The potential is there if they walk away. So again, it's a reputable company that we've dealt with for a long time, and they've done a lot of good work for the town. So that's just, it was just a statement that I had made. Yeah. Mr. Units.
And would the board be willing to vote to put an article on the warrant for this?
Sure. I would be, yes. Mr. Selva.
Are we going to include 140 with this also, or?
That's another question I'd have, the rezoning of 140 and Reservoir to Village Commercial.
So, my opinion would be that we should both do them at the same time.
My only concern is I don't want to, this to me is very important. This Houghton Farm project is extremely important to us only because of the amount of jobs and infrastructure and everything that's going to come with it. Mansfield Lab is also very important. I'm concerned that the two might cloud over each other and cause some concern for both neighborhoods. But I think in all reality, in all fairness to Mansfield Ave, we should be doing both at the same time. But I think also we need to take another look at Mansfield Ave and say, we've got Reservoir and we've got Mansfield Ave. What's important? Because there are sections of Reservoir Street that even I agree on couldn't be reclassified as commercial or village industrial, or village commercial. I think they should remain residential as you get closer to the reservoir. But that doesn't mean the land behind that can't still be looked at. So I guess I would encourage Mr. Yunus, if he can work with the planning board on this, just if they can pull back a bit from reservoir. Reservoir is not designed or built to handle any kind of industrial or commercial traffic. And it never will be, because it would involve taking homes in some cases because they're so close to the road. So if we could just take another look at the plan and just try to bring it back a shade and make it all happen. And the question about how that land down there became industrial, commercial, or whatever it's called, some research has to be done to find out how that all came about. I don't remember it ever being that way, but that could have been on the books for 40 years for all I know. You know, so I think we need to do some research and find out if, in fact, it is residential. I mean, if it is commercial, how it got there. But if we can't find any record of it ever happening, how do we fix it? How do we just put it back to residential like it should be?
Right.
So I think that's the kind of stuff we need to address in the meantime.
All right, we'll put placeholders on for those two articles.
Yeah, so we need to take a motion on that, yeah? Or no?
If you want to vote
Yeah, I'll
on it, you
make a
don't
motion
have to.
to, on the next warrant, to put the Houghton Farm and the Mansfield Avenue proposals back on the warrant.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yes, I would ask that we make sure we properly notify everybody in advance. I don't care what it costs, but we want to make sure we follow proper procedures when we try to redress these zoning issues.
So that's one thing that we definitely, especially, well, not especially, but on the one, from the 140 side, there was a lot of questions and concerns from
rightfully
that side,
so.
absolutely, yeah. So it's very important that we're, again, very open, very upfront, and very, we give the information necessary to everybody that's, you know, that is, may be concerned. Ms. Steele?
Mr. Chairman, I understand the need to put the question on for Houghton Land because Condyne is still interested in that project, and they can't go forward without it. But do we have something pending for Reservoir?
I don't know if there's still.
That's what I'm wondering.
There was a sale ready to go.
On Mansfield Ave.
It's,
I'm sorry, I said Reservoir, I meant Mansfield Ave, yeah,
right, there was a sale ready to go, but they're waiting for,
for zoning. Okay, so there is interest on both projects, okay.
Yes. Okay, given that, any other further comments, questions? Given that, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I too vote aye, that is unanimous.
just one other thing if I could. The health group met this week. We hope to have numbers next week, the final numbers for the increase in our health insurance. But just preliminarily, by doing what we did last year, switching the health insurance, some of the plans, especially like the PPOs, and the first projections were projected to go up 20%. The next plan down 14%, and ours between 5 and 8%. So the savings continues substantially by being in that plan. And another thing our group is looking to do.
So I always look at that as a savings, but it's
Yeah.
you know, you're happy that it's 5 to 8% of
Right,
this, but it's
if
still.
we were
you
still
know,
in the old plan
Yeah.
and went up 14% again this year,
We didn't
as
go up higher
opposed to
than
5 on the lower price plan.
Yeah.
And one of the things we hope to have in place in March for our health group, one of the big driving forces with the health insurance now, it's driving up the cost, is the pharmaceuticals. And our health increases this year justified like 8% over all the plans, but the pharmaceuticals were like almost 20% increase. So it's really driving everything. And one of the things we're looking at, hopefully to have in place in March, is the option that employees will be able to buy their prescription drugs from Canna RX. So they'll come from Canada, Australia, New Zealand, or England. And with that, it's so much cheaper that there'll be no co-pays for the employees.
A 90-day supply, too.
Right.
90 day, yeah.
I mean, right now, we use Express Scripts, but this would be so much cheaper that there'd be no copay. And a lot of people think, oh, drugs from outside the United States. some drugs aren't made here. I was shocked to hear that. I forget, one very common drug they were talking about is only made in Ireland. So there are drugs that aren't made here, but people think they are. And these are all brand names. They're not, what am I thinking of? Not knockoffs or generic.
Yeah.
And it's
So when you mentioned the out-of-country things, that was my first thought was, but
so it'll be just like they'll deal with your doctor and get the prescription, or go to a pharmacy in Canada where they'll package them and send them right to your house. And it's just so much cheaper. It's a shame that that's the way it is, but it'll be a big savings.
okay. Mr. Bremo?
Just speaking from experience, all those countries that you've mentioned all have regulatory agencies similar to the FDA that do the same kind of inspections that manufacturers in the United States are subjected to.
That's the only reason they use, that's why they'll only go to those countries.
Right.
And it'll be in English.
There you go.
But they were also saying that some of those countries actually, like here, a lot of the drugs get shipped to Puerto Rico where they get packaged and then sent to warehouses in the United States for distribution. And in some of these countries, at least two of them, the government actually owns the warehouses, which is surprising.
Interesting. Okay, anything else?
Nope.
Under appointments and resignations, we have Lisa Carrozza, who's interested in the Stormwater Committee. I would entertain a motion to appoint Lisa Carrozza to the Stormwater Committee.
So moved.
Second?
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Given none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I too vote aye. That is unanimous. Mr. Salvo, Selectmen's report and mail.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I'd like to approve the bi-weekly payroll warrant number 43 dated January 9th, 2017, in the amount of $1,355,847.41.
Second?
A motion and a second. Any further discussion on warrant number 43? Given none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I too vote aye. That is unanimous. Mr. Salvo.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to approve bill warrant number 44 dated January 19th, 2017, in the amount of $352,146.67.
Second?
I have a motion and a second on warrant number 44. Any further discussion? Given none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I too vote aye. That is unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to approve bill warrant number 45 dated January 26, 2017, in the amount of $758,465.43.
Second?
A motion and a second. Any further discussion on warrant number 45? Given none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I too vote aye. That is unanimous. Selectmen's report and mail. Mr. Salvo.
Mr. Chairman, I talked to you earlier about this. Mike, is there any way that we could get a representative from Gator Investments in here? I know we've asked this many times before. Can we get a stipend to go down and visit them if that can't happen? But here's what I feel so that we need some type of explanation of what, this town needs to do, or they need to do, that we can help them to fulfill their stores. I mean, I know it's probably rent, but what can we do to help them to attract people to come here?
Is there anything legally we can do to make them come up here and talk to us? I mean, probably not, I wouldn't think, but it's really frustrating. It's frustrating from our standpoint. I mean, we have, these available businesses, and then,
Looking at
less
Froyo
than
there.
5 miles down the street is
Whatever that
Mansfield
company is
Crossing.
there, Froyo, the frozen berry place.
Yeah.
They're not open. And, the Best Sandwich Shop, they're struggling and doing whatever they can to try to, to make it. And it's like, we don't like to see businesses fail. They're probably paying a good premium to be there. But the more attraction in there would bring more people for everybody.
I don't know, any thoughts on that, Michael, at all? I know we've tried.
I think we can reach out to them, but I think another angle first would be to reach out to some of the people that are in there and see what it's like dealing with Gator Investments, and maybe we'll get some idea of what one of the problems might be. They have their anchors, and it doesn't matter to them who comes and goes, because they'll have people come in, pay rent, And if it's vacant for a few months and they get someone else to come in and pay a high rent, they don't care. But
Okay.
we'll see, we'll talk, see who we can reach out to.
Okay, I mean, at least maybe we'll do something, try to do something there, but it's very frustrating.
You know, Mr. Chairman, it is in a lot of ways, because I've seen this for the last 10 or 15 years. Norton's been a drive-through town. We don't have an upscale, restaurant or even a plaza where people do all their shopping like our surrounding towns have. It's very frustrating, because I always see, Mansfield, for instance, they're always having something new come into their town, which it draws people to go there. We need to draw people to come here to help us out. Whatever they spend, they buy food, they pay meal tax, so it helps us all out. So it is very frustrating to see what we can do to
At least get
go
something.
back to the what was it, the flea market. Made a lot of money back there.
Right, yeah.
I was surprised, down in Swansea, across from the Swansea Mall on 118, that plaza there is owned by Gator also.
Oh, really?
And they always seem to be pretty filled up.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it is about.
So I haven't been down there in a little bit of time, but I know the last time I was there was Phil. It was mostly Phil. I didn't notice it was Gator, but, yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that like
Huh,
a year and a half ago, I think.
interesting,
But it seemed, they don't seem to have a problem down there.
yeah.
So I don't know what it is
Like,
with this particular
sorry.
location.
Is it Roach Brothers Plaza on sewer?
I think they are, yeah, because New England Ice Cream's on, so
Right.
there's a gap there. It
It
starts
is.
coming
Yeah,
there.
it's actually the mobile home park behind it is on it, too. So that whole area, that's where it ends.
So that's good, yeah, yeah.
Where I live is next door to the, Beardwood Marketplace, and I use it a lot.
You have town sewage, right, Peter?
What?
You have town sewage?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay, anything else, Mr. Salvo?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Ms. Steele?
Nothing.
Mr. Bramwell?
I just wanted to mention, you had mentioned at the beginning of the meeting about John Drain passing.
Yes.
And I just want to, pass my personal condolences. And the fact that besides being involved in the Board of Selectmen, he was very active, especially through the church, in, helping people at the St. Vincent de Paul. A lot of the church activities of the Knights of Columbus. He was into the Boy Scouts when his two sons were younger. And, his sons have both, carried on the tradition. And a very nice gentleman. The whole family is, he's been a businessman. He actually was the realtor who finalized my home sale when I bought my home years ago. So I didn't realize that he had been ill, and it was a shock, and feel very bad for the family, and the fact that I really didn't know that he was, in the condition he was in. So, again, my condolences, and he was a true gentleman. He was, he always went out of his way to help people.
Thank you. Mr. Kimball?
I'll remind everyone again that the BFW is still selling bricks for their Circle of Flags. So if you're interested, you can contact them down at Summer Street, but they still have bricks for sale for $50. I'm looking at this Housing and Community Development 40B that we talked about earlier, Mike. Can you find out on Norton Glen scares the crap out of me? Why that's 2015?
Yeah, the planner is working on that.
Let's find, maybe, I see a sub-note here on the bottom, but I want to make sure that, Mass Housing understands the importance of that to the town of Norton. That doesn't drop off the list, the inventory, that would be a problem. So in the last couple of weeks, last two Tuesdays, I've had two meetings, one with the Gold Star Committee on the 17th, and I had another meeting on Tuesday night with the Town Common Revitalization Committee to talk about wells, artesian wells. I mentioned earlier that, the water department has been persistent and wants to take us off the town water, which is fine. We paid, I'm looking at a statement here, we paid $281 in water fees last year for small little park. I'm not sure why it costs so much, but $281 is a lot of money in my opinion. But so we're now at a process where I'm waiting for the town manager and the town accountant to approve the installation of 2 artesian wells. One will be on the town common, and the second one will be at the Trent Memorial. It appears that they're going to cost up to $12,000 per well. We're not sure. It's one of those crapshoots where you drill and you figure out somewhere you're going to hit water, you never know where you're going to hit it. You know, you can get down 200 feet and hit it, or you can get down 2,000 feet and hit it. So we're not really sure how it's all going to turn out, but once I get approval from the town to proceed, we picked a company that we want to do the wells for us, and I will contact them. But I wanted to give people an update on what we're doing. We haven't given up on the revitalization of the common. When you look at the fence around it, you can still see it's getting worse, starting to crumble. Mansfield Ave side is actually pieces laying on the ground. We found a company in Taunton, Wollaston Boundary. Keith Silver and I met with them last fall, and they're actually able to take certain parts of that, the knuckles and the ball and certain pieces of it, including the stands, the actual post itself, and they're able to sandblast it and get it back down to its original metal, cast iron metal. Concerned about some of it's never going to make it. It's just going to disintegrate. For those that don't know, that fence was donated to the town by Eliza Wheaton in 1865. That's how long it's been sitting there. And Alex Rich, for many years, senior, he did a lot of work and did a lot of patching on it and a lot of welding to hold it together. But it's now to the point where it has to be replaced. We've been working with the Historical District Commission and trying to figure out, negotiate ways to make this all happen. And I'm going to be meeting with them in a couple of weeks. We're at a point now where we need to get moving on this, or we're going to get to a point where we're just going to put the well in and probably disband. We've been at it for 2 years. We keep hitting some roadblocks. Funding has become a problem, and we get it. We don't want to ask the town for any money at this point, but we've got to figure out a way to, if we're not going to restore the fence, we need to take it down and try to preserve and refurbish as much of it as we can before it's all gone.
Right.
So that's our plan for this winter. But I just want to keep everyone up to date on it, and we are moving ahead with the 2 wells so we can, number one, take care of the sprinkler system that is already at the Trent Memorial, and we have another company who's willing to, once we put the well in, they're willing to work with us to actually put a sprinkler system on the common. So if nothing else, we can make the common green until we can figure out how to take care of the rest of it. But I just want to give everybody an update.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kimball. Anything else? So the only thing that I had is somewhat, it's indirectly related to us, I guess, but the State House, Senate and House basically voted themselves a raise, finalized, not necessarily finalized today, but they voted themselves to give themselves a raise. In some positions, up to about 45%. So the governor, so to me, that's appalling, I guess I'd say. With the amount of money that the cities and towns don't have and the state doesn't have to give to the cities and towns, it's absolutely appalling to me that people can just give themselves that large or vote to give themselves that large of a raise. The governor has stated that he's going to veto that, which is what he should do. And it's so to me, it's just somewhat of a comment to the state, I guess I'll say, but to the town as well, just to say that we just really have to watch out for this stuff, because that is $40 million, I think was the number, $40 million of basically for not just the State House but all of the employees of the state, and certainly that's money that can be used. And not saying that certain people do not need a raise, but a 45% raise is certainly way out of line to what people are getting this day and age, and really what the cities and towns are getting from the state, and with the amount of mandates and so forth. So, anyways, I just get off my soapbox now, I guess. And
it's tough when you can't live on $200,000 a year. You got to find some other profession to get yourself into.
So, You know, if we could all vote for ourselves raises, that would be really nice, I
So you
guess.
want me to cross that out? 14% is off the table?
14% off the table, yeah. Of course, now that I said
Except
that,
for
the
the Board of
state.
Selectmen, we want a 14% increase.
Yeah, 14% of nothing is
On top of
nothing,
what we get now.
right? Brett was talking about that
That's it,
earlier.
I thought we should go for 500%.
Why not?
Anyway, so.
What's 500% of nothing?
Yeah. Next meeting's agenda, we're going to, which is February 9th. Is that next meeting's,
That'd be,
February
is
2nd.
that 9th?
that would be 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks, we'll have the auditor report here, so February 9th, the one that we were speaking of a couple weeks ago, which is good. Next week's agenda,
Because Bob said you were going every other week now, right?
sure.
I remember a vote being taken, but I don't
Yeah.
He
I
said
don't
it
remember
the
voting
last
for it.
No, I don't think, yeah, the beginning of the year is tough. There's a lot of stuff going on.
You said after the
Seems.
budget season.
That's, yeah,
That was
that's,
October.
yeah.
Now we're into the next budget season. Wait till October.
Yeah. So I'd say, yeah, sometime in after town meeting,
Wait for
maybe.
July, we'll be doing it anyway.
So July will work. But I asked I'll ask Mr. Eunice just to give us an update, I guess, on the center traffic lights. I know we're trying to meet with the DOT still, so he's going to check with Mr. Silver on that, and also maybe a lodging update if that's possible as well.
Question. I drove through there the other night. They put a couple of new lights up over
They
there?
did, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was me. Looking and saying, those look very modern, so they have to be new.
They're
Yeah.
more screwed up than they ever were.
Okay.
Right? So we can put up new lights, but we just can't get
Great.
yeah.
Don't dare cross there.
No,
No, you've got 10 seconds.
yeah.
You may get that icon to walk, but you better run, because you're not gonna
It's
you're not gonna
dangerous.
have
It
time
is
to get
dangerous.
across.
Earlier this week, I did meet with Gatra over at Wheaton, because Gatra's looking to work with Wheaton to get a hub over there somewhere so they can get the stop away from the intersection.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That, and we gotta continue to talk about our lodging houses.
Yeah, so that's on, yeah, so he's gonna give us an update that next week. Absolutely. Anything else that we want to add for next week's meeting right now?
2 weeks.
2 weeks, in 2 weeks?
That's what you said.
2 weeks,
Man, you
Next week is
guys,
the second.
I feel
You
disappointed.
guys were saying the 9th.
the 9th.
Okay, the 9th then. So we don't meet next week, and then unless something, an emergency happens, and we'll
Gonna snow
meet again on the
anyways.
9th. What's that?
It'll snow anyways.
No.
Quiet. Anything else to come before the board then?
No, no,
Let's throw a monkey wrench in there, Brad.
there's no reason for using four-letter words.
Right. I'm in the auto business. We don't, that's,
It was 50 degrees today.
yeah, I know.
I'm doing
This is
asphalt
good.
tomorrow.
This is good.
Are you really?
I have to.
Yeah.
Don't want to, but I have to.
Okay, I would then entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying
Aye.
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 I too vote aye, that is unanimous.
That
Thank
was
you.
fast.
Been great.